Hey everybody, Jeff Sangpill here. Wanted to get a discussion started with y'all about archive and the concepts behind it. It's July. I've been watching here in LA talk about different wildfires. And it makes sense. Fire season in LA is between April and November. It's July, right in the middle. But then why last January was my phone ringing off the hook with people screaming, "Oh my God, there's a wildfire nearby. What am I going to do about my content?" So it raises a bunch of questions there about, okay, how safe do you need to be? What problem are you trying to actually solve? So one of the big problems is out there has been people hijacking data, coming in and doing a ransomware thing. All your data locks down. You can't get to it. You need to pay an outrageous amount of money, and that's it. That is an on prem issue. So, usually in your primary tier one storage. But a lot of those people are also going after folks who do archive and taking out the archive controller, hopefully taking out the catalog of all the archived content. So whether you have it on tier 2 storage or you have it on LTO tape or some other method, you've lost track of it because they've taken that ability from you. And then there's good old fire season. So if your building burns down, if all your storage, tier one, tier two, and your deep archive are all in the same building, it's gone. So why archive? One of those things that becomes pretty obvious when you talk about fire season and ransomware attacks, but people have different reasons for needing to archive. One of them is it's not your content. You are working on someone else's show, and you need to make sure that their material and their work product doesn't just simply evaporate for whatever reason. Another reason is it's your content, but you spent a lot of money acquiring it. Shoot days are not cheap. Craft services, yeah, I like some craft services, but everything has a cost. And if someone is entrusting their media with you, you need to make sure that you've got a backup. Theatrical and episodic television, usually when they shoot, they will send one copy to one coast of the United States and the other copy to the other coast. So that gets into a discussion about that blast radius I talked about. How big of a problem do you need to solve? Okay, my primary storage has gone down. Uh, I can just go to my secondary storage and continue work, possibly. It depends on how I built the system, and we'll get into that discussion a little bit later. Or maybe I just simply need to replace my primary storage and restore everything that I was working on back from secondary storage or LTO storage to my primary, and off it goes. That's a pretty logical way of working, but that only solves the problem of taking out the primary storage. If your secondary storage is taken out, say you lose power or you lose air conditioning. I've been in a number of situations where a loss of air conditioning ends up causing large amounts of storage to go down permanently. They don't like operating when it's 110, 120 degrees around them, and failure of air conditioning is a big, big deal. So, how do you solve for that particular problem? One of the ways people have done that is in the past is they had videotapes, they had film, they would just simply have that be in a different building. There were film and tape archives all over the place in Los Angeles. And we learned after the Universal Studios fire, when a number of priceless, irreplaceable masters were lost forever, that that wasn't necessarily the best way to do this either. So we came up with other concepts. LTO was one of them, and LTO is relatively inexpensive, and it's easy to take something, put it on this very cold layer of storage, and have it go elsewhere. You take the tapes out of your library, you send them to across town or across the country. That's definitely a way to keep it safe. It's not really a quick way to continue work in the event of a catastrophic failure. And that's where the discussion about business continuity versus disaster recovery comes in. But one of the things that we've been able to accomplish these days is you don't have to necessarily have it sitting on a cold archive somewhere. You could have your data living in someone else's server room. Now, that server room could be a cloud. A cloud data center is just someone else's server room. It's really big and a lot of other people are using it at the same time. But one of the other pieces that's not necessarily as costly as having a cloud presence is having a data center that is elsewhere in the same metropolis or even on a different side of the country, or a data center that can back up to another data center as cloud can do. You can put something into one region and then have it replicate into other regions. So something happens to all of Southern California, you can actually have your data out in Arizona and people could connect and begin to work on that. So that gets to that further discussion into what's business continuity versus disaster recovery. A disaster recovery means, okay, we've lost this and we're going to need to get back to it. We're going to have to recover from this disaster. Now, if we've lost it in terms of a wildfire taking out the building, we know from experience after everything that happened in January, the site's going to need to be cleared, plans are going to need to be figured out, approved by the municipality, all the code things are going to need to be checked out. You come and you build it, and then you populate it with the equipment inside. You rehydrate all of that data from wherever else you had it that was off prem, and you can continue working. That may be 18 months, 2 years down the road, but you've recovered from that disaster. A business continuity play is I've lost everything. I cannot work at this location and I need to continue work. I have deliverables that I need because that's how my income stream comes in. That's where you can have something out in a cloud or a data center, and you can use something like LucidLink to actually continue working, or Suite Studio, and that allows you to not have any interruptions whatsoever. You may need to do a little bit of triage to discover who's going to be working on what, but it continues your work, your business. While the disaster is recovered in the background, your business is still continuing. So a lot of people look at some of these archive concepts and they figure, if I have something over here and it's what's known as immutable, meaning I've written it once and then it can't be deleted. Immutable is a concept that a lot of LTO manufacturers have, a lot of cloud manufacturers have. You can have something be a mutable bucket, whether it's in AWS or Wasabi or Backblaze or Azure. There's a number of different options there where it's once it's been deleted, you need God admin control to make it go away. You cannot get this to go away in any other way, shape, or form. That is a very, very safe way of keeping your data for the long term. Usually that's what we would call an insurance check rehydration, where I've need to get everything copied off and put back into my newly built facility. I've recovered from that space, that disaster that I've had. So the thing is, the best possible disaster recovery is usually horrible business continuity. Oh, I've got LTO tapes, but they're out on the other coast, or they're in another on another continent, or I've got data that's in a cloud or a cloud data center that's really slow speed. Basically, it's LTO in someone else's data center, and it's slow speed. It's elsewhere. It was not necessarily set to do the thing that I needed to do because it's a disaster recovery play. So you need to look at doing a purpose-built infrastructure for the kind of problem that you are going to need to solve. Whether that is dealing with an on-prem data center or a data lake, which is object storage, like in the cloud, just on your own premises, or in a data center that is controlled by you on the other side of town, or a data center that's controlled by the cloud. There's a cost structure with all of those, and this is all stuff that needs to be just simply figured out. And the other part of this is going to be what your archive is for. So if you're required to archive, that's a big deal. I remember a television station in Los Angeles. They should have been archiving, but they had stopped writing to LTO. And when their ransomware hit them, they didn't have what they needed backed up. They had old data on LTO, but it had no purpose for them other than being a very deep archive of material that they no longer needed. So if you need your archive to be a business continuity play as opposed to a simple disaster recovery, that's one thing. If you're required to have that by, as an insurance method, you are required in someone's contract to say that you have this. And that's really more a matter of a disaster recovery type of play, making sure you have every single bit of data that you could possibly need somewhere. That covers it for what the contractual obligation is that you've incurred. So, how do you figure out how to do this sort of stuff? You could go on the internet like you already have. You found me, and figure out all these different possible details and write up these scenarios and ask all the questions. Or I can give you a hand with this. I'm open to consult and more than happy to help you figure out exactly what your archive, disaster recovery, business continuity needs are, and what play will work best for you. There's also that fun little thing is if you're doing an archive into a data center, and particularly a cloud, there may be other things you could do because they do really smart things over here next to your data. You could tell it, I need artificial intelligence to begin grabbing insights on this data. That's something that you may not have thought about. Archives can turn into monetizable content later down the road. And that will be a beautiful thing because perhaps you'll get your entire archive concept paid for. It's not just simply insurance, it's a new stream of revenue for you. And if there's anything we've learned about the media industry lately, having another stream of revenue is definitely where you want to be. If you need help, please reach out. Postdoctor's here to have a chat with you.